For God so loved this world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. For while we were still weak, at the right time, just at the right moment, Christ died for the ungodly. For one person will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. You were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of the world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just like the rest of mankind. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ by grace, not your good works, not being nice to people, not coming to church, but by grace you have been saved. Beloved, then, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. In this love of God has made manifest among us that God sent his only Son into this world so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation, big theological word, which means the appeasement, means not only appeasement, but bringing reconciliation to a broken relationship. God sent his Son to be the fixer of the damage for our sins. And beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. For the last several weeks, we have been on this journey trying to figure out how do we live out and communicate that story when we have a world that is chaotic at Christmas. And yet, we are called, mandated by God, to tell his story of this one who has come as a baby in a manger, who grew up to be that propitiation of our sin, that we might again know God forever and ever. And you and I are challenged to do that in a time that doesn't really want Christ in Christmas, doesn't really want the focus on him, would rather have the focus on recovering the economy by spending more than we make, to push the envelope in so many areas that aren't necessarily bad, but don't necessarily point people to Christ. And so the challenge for us over the last several weeks is to figure out how to live Christmas upside down so that that story reigns supreme, at least if not in our culture, within our own lives. So we've talked about the disciplines of bringing to our Christmas experience, disciplines like worshiping fully, and how Christ doesn't need, at least for us, not for the culture, but for us as followers of Christ, that Jesus doesn't need to be an add-on or something that's off to the side, but that he would be the center of our Christmas experience. We talked about how we can be countercultural in some ways by spending less in order to give more. But today we come to what may be the secret as it engages the world around us. And that is simply to love all. Throughout history, Christianity has not always done very well. We have not done extremely well when we've had power. What kept the Christian movement moving was not the politics of Christianity. It's not our programs and our plans. It's not even our buildings. It's not even our rhetoric, but it was our love that penetrated the culture. And the challenge for us is to figure out how we can love a love-starved world. And rather than taking the approach of yelling at people or claiming that Frosty is evil and Rudolph is bad, we should embrace the season, but just remind those, and I've been doing this all sermon series long, that a Christmas without Christ is not bad, it's just less. And if you offer a kid nothing or a Hershey bar, they're going to take the Hershey bar every time. And what our world has bought the lie that all there is to Christmas is the shopping and the being nice to one another for a season. And they think that they've got something. But with love, we can demonstrate that there's something more. I know. There are those who would be out to harm us as believers. There are some within the world, if they could strap on an explosive device and come into this room and detonate it, they would do it in a heartbeat. But I think that there's others, in fact, a lot more people who, if we demonstrated love toward them and demonstrate that there is something more, that they would take it. So rather than being upset at Christmas and they don't do all thing and their holiday trees and we have winter concerts, and instead of being so upset about that, why can't we live the idea that that is less and that we have more? In fact, we have a whole lot more. As followers of Christ, we've got a whole lot more that we can offer. And what kid in their right mind, when they had a choice, would not choose this? You see, it might be that the world's a dark, cold place and nobody wants Jesus. That may be true. But I think there's a lot of people who want the love that Jesus provides. So what I've been challenging you and me is to love like this. In a world that's satisfied with that, we go, oh, no, 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 no. Jesus came to give us more. And the early church survived because of their love. When Roman moms and dads would take the unwanted children that they did not want to keep, they would take them to a dump and leave them to be exposed to the elements and die. But Christians went into the dumps and gathered up the children that nobody wanted, and they took them home and they raised them. When the plague was sweeping Western Europe and people were dying by the millions, and they would stack up the sick people in what they would call hospitals, we would call them pigsties. And when they were abandoned by their own families because that disease was very communicable, people could catch it very easily. Do you know who rushed in to take care of those dying people? Who were Christians. Many of those Christians caught the same disease and they would die as well. But they went. And in World War II, when the Nazis were coming for the Jews, there were some Christians who would stand and pay with their very lives. You see, love changes things. In fact, Jesus, just before he left, said, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another." And if there has been anything to whatever benefit or success that we have seen as a church, I think it's because we have been able to love one another. Through disagreements on color of carpet and disagreements on when we're going to do what and how it's going to look and how it's going to sound and all those kind of things. I think because we have been able to love one another through that, God has chosen to bless us because love is very attractive. If you go to a place that you feel loved, that's a place you're going to return again and again and again and again. And so for us, we've got to figure out a way to love in the manner that Jesus loved. So I've tried to work on an illustration. It's not perfect, but I've tried to demonstrate this about how our call is to love. And it's a little bit messy because you know what? Love is a little bit messy, isn't it? Anybody know what I'm talking about, that love is a little bit messy? But what I've tried to do is I've tried to demonstrate this concept by using the stuff that I have, and this is going to represent you. Now, some of you are this shape, others of you are not this shape, but either way, this is going to represent you, all right? And a better color probably would have been red than this color of orange, but I felt like red might stain the carpet, so I went with orange, all right? And what I want you to think about is that this represents you, and this is your capacity to love. This is the love that you have inside of you. And you and I constantly are asked by the people around us to dispense with some of our love to them so that they might feel love. And you and I are happy to do that if it's the right person. See, some of us as guys, we spent our lives trying to find a wife, right? And I found a great one. And some of you still looking for that perfect one. I understand that. And some of you are considering even the mail order thing. And that may work for you. I don't know. I did the traditional stalking the woman is what I did, and kind of turned out well. But for me, I have no problem taking my love and dispensing my love that I have for her. And since she's a wife, we want to make, See, that's how much I love you, dear, right there. That's how much it was. Just overflows. But we don't mind filling up that person with our love. We think that's a good investment. We think that's safe. We think that's fine. And so we love them with all the love that they could stand. And some of y'all, because you're women, did not have a wife. You got a husband. And so you decide to love him. Maybe not as much. But you love him just the same because he's yours, right? With all of his faults and foibles and problems and challenges, you just keep loving him. Maybe a drop at a time, maybe. But you keep loving him. And you don't mind that because you signed up for that love. You expect to love him. You know that. And so you don't mind dispensing, and you don't mind that your love quotient there that you've got inside this has gone down. You're okay with that. And then there's other people that you choose to love like your children. You may have a child or several children, and so you decide to love your children. Okay, that's not fair. Okay, there we go. That's about what we do our children. No. But you love your children, you know, even when they get older and they come home to stay. You still pour your love out to your children, and you don't mind that. You're happy. You're happy to dispense that kind of love because you're supposed to. You know that's exactly what you're supposed to do because these people deserve it, right? And then most of us are okay at finding other people that are worthy of our love. People say, you know, like your pastor. Hang on, let me get another cup. No, okay. But you don't mind loving people that deserve it. You're okay with that. And even occasionally, there's a random person that comes into your life. You can't see that, but it says random. Because you don't know their story, you don't know the background, but you look at them and they have a need and you go, you know what? I can love them. I'll love them. It's a little bit of a work, a little bit of pain, but Jesus said to love people, so you don't mind loving that random person. And so you go, well, that's good. I like loving people. But then, the holidays come. You get to be with family. And the family that you're with, you've been trying to love them for a long time. But some of your family, they got some holes in them. And so you love them. But somehow the love kind of oozes out all over the place. And yet you go, okay, they're deserving of my love. And so you love them. And it keeps seeming like everything that you pour in them comes right back out. You say, this year, this Christmas, I'm going to be happy and nice with them. And you sit around the table and they start in it again. And you go, you know what? I've loved plenty for you. I'm not going to love you anymore. I'm tired of it. I've loved you and I've loved you and I've loved you. And I'm not going to love you anymore. And you stop. And then there's other people in your life that they start out as random people and you start helping them, but the more that you help them, these strangers become more than just a little bit of problem. They've got some massive problems in their life. And it seems like as soon as you're pouring it in, it's going out just about as fast as it goes in. And then there are the people, these are the people that they're just bums, and everything you pour into them, it's not even staying there. Because there's nothing there. And you go, I'm done. Because if I keep pouring this out, I'm not going to have any. And we become worried that we're not going to have enough love. And so what we do is we shut down. And we say, I'm not going to love anymore. I'm losing. I don't have enough for you. I'm not going to love you because you don't deserve my love. But there's another solution. And the solution is this, that God has enough love for us. In fact, if you really be honest, most of us would think that, when God saved us and loved us, He got a pretty good deal loving us, right? I mean, because we're worthy of His love. I mean, we're going to be nice to people. We're going to go to church, right? We're going to be nice. We're going to throw something in the offering. And so it's no wonder that we know that we can go to God as believers, and we can go and we can be filled back up. And so we've been pouring out our love, and so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to God, and He will fill us up because he has a greater supply for us that we can come, and then he can pour that back into us so that we would have the capacity to love because we're good people. In fact, God kind of loves us. In fact, he kind of even likes us. He thinks we're pretty cool. He feels really good that he got a great deal with us. And so we don't have any problem going back and getting more from God for us. But you know what? When God came, he didn't just come for the good people. He didn't just come for those of us who really have earned it. He didn't come for those who deserve it. What Christ did is when he came, he loved indiscriminately. He loved recklessly. He loved in ways that we would look at him and go, you've got to be kidding. God, you love that guy? You love that? There's no way. And we look at that, and God is as if he's just pouring through, and we're going, I can't believe God loves that person. And yet he did. See, God sent his son into the world for not just the good people like you and me, but for the person who would reject him. For the ones that would spit on him, and the ones that would drive the nails in his hands, the ones that would seek to do you and I harm. And if we're going to make a difference in this world, we may have to love like Jesus loved in order to be heard. You think, well, wait a minute, I can't love this guy because I keep loving him. I'm not going to have any left. Well, can I tell you that God has greater capacity than even that? See, God has a greater capacity than just one bucket. He's got more. He's got enough love for your wife when she drags you shopping on Saturday before Christmas. He's got enough love to love that. Men, he's got enough love to give to your wife when you buy her a gift card for Christmas. He's got enough love for that. I know Lowe's, great place. I know, I'm with you. But he's got enough love for that. He's got enough love when your kids are teenagers. Hang on. Teenagers. Hang on. Did I mention teenagers? He's got enough love for that. He's got enough love that it can continue to come and come and come, that his capacity, I moved it over there. His capacity cannot be outgiven. In fact, if you think that God will run out of love, he's got a whole factory of these coolers. And then on top of that factory, he's got an orange creek that he can go dig in with an orange well that'll just come up out of the ground for your love. And he owns every planet in the entire universe, and he can mine those for that love. For the one that's not worthy, for the one that's not done it right, for the one who's wasting his love. And so our calling in a crowded, messed up, crazy world is to love. And so in this Christmas season, I'm not talking about giving people money. That's too easy. Anybody can do that. The government's doing that left and right. It's easy, right? Just print some more. No big deal. No big deal. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about demonstrating love. I'm not talking about enabling people to continue to sin. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about any of those things. What I'm talking about is that we would love one another, because that's what Jesus said people would recognize, that we would love each other, and that love would not just be for us, but would be for the entire world, because he laid his life down for love. And so here's the challenge for you and I. In this Christmas season, let's love recklessly. Let's love people who don't deserve it. In fact, let's love some people that it's going to be a waste. Some of those family members, some of those strangers that you're getting stranger and stranger all the time to you. Let's just try at Christmas to go ahead and love them. I'm not saying go give them money. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you put yourself in a dangerous position or a situation and pick up strangers. I'm not talking about all that kind of stuff, okay? But could we, for this one little piece of our year, open our hearts back and rather filtering whether we should love or not, let's just love. Because ultimately, overall, love wins. Now, I've seen love take a beating. I have. And in this world, sometimes love loses. I know that. Sometimes it does. Those Christians who went to take care of people that were dying and they get the disease and they die, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't make sense to waste all that stuff. Some of y'all out there going, how much water did he waste today? And how color is it? I mean, some of you are figuring that out. I understand that. But what if just in response to living Christmas differently, that we first sit at the feet of Jesus and worship him first and foremost, and not stuff and people and all these other kinds of things. Worship him first. They might drive us to these other disciplines that we might love one another. Our politics will not change the heart of man. Picketing does not change the heart of man. Yelling at people does not change the heart of man. Great sermons with cool props that keep you awake for 5 minutes longer than what you would have done otherwise doesn't change the world, but here's what does. Love. Recklessly, with indiscretion, poured out everywhere we go, and if some of that love gets in somebody who doesn't deserve it, well, oh well. Oh well. Because we may just find, we may just find that this is not the way to live an upside-down Christmas, but it's a way to live